Hello again, and welcome back to Granny Dorothy Visits. Today's topic is Your Two Minds. The first reading from Everyday Positive Thinking, Louise Hay's book. And the quote is from Keith D. Harrell. Tap into the unlimited mind of creation and draw from it the right thoughts, plans, and actions that will lead you to your ultimate success. And the second, actually, and last book today I'm going to read from is Wayne Dyer's Excuses Be Gone. And I'll tell you, it's going to be a little bit long, but I just couldn't cut it off any sooner. So I hope you bear with me because I think that there's a lot of good material here. Okay? So it starts off with a quote from The Principles of Psychology by William James. The hell to be endured hereafter, of which theology tells, is no worse than the hell we make for ourselves in this world by habitually fashioning our characters in the wrong way. We are spinning our own fates, good or evil. Some time ago, I challenged myself to study the process of making dramatic thought transitions, using attitudes and behaviors that had been with me for a lifetime. For several years, I scrutinized precisely what I did to undo old patterns myself. This activity led me to question basic beliefs about the legitimacy of environmental and genetic authority in determining who I am and what I can change. Due to my success in modifying my thoughts and subsequently my actions, I developed a new paradigm for eliminating unwanted, lifelong thinking habits. At first glance, much of what I'm sharing here may seem radical and inconsistent with established psychology and sociological academic tenets. So be it. Here is what I believe, and this is how I see it. In a brilliant one-act play by Jean-Paul Sartre titled No Exit, the central character states emphatically, "A man is what he wills himself to be." This idea of willpower is a core theme in much of my earlier writing, and I still strongly subscribe to the belief that we all have within us an invisible force that we recognize as will. But I also know that there are many facets of our lives that seem to be beyond the pale of the will. For example, it often isn't enough to eliminate lifelong habits. Identifying and changing some thoughts, particularly those that have been with us for what seems like forever, requires a brand new perceptual process. In contrast to Sartre's observation, Ralph Waldo Emerson offers this: man is a stream whose source is hidden. Our being is descending into us from we know not whence. In the 1600s, Benedict de Spinoza made a similar observation about the human mind, which I read in my college days and have never forgotten. Quote, "The human mind is part of the infinite intellect of God." I still apply this to myself whenever I question how or why I got myself into one of the many predicaments I've brought upon myself throughout my adult life. The mind that Spinoza is referring to has no form or substance, is always working, even while you're sleeping, and most significantly, is your connection to Source. Viewed in this light, it is your personal God component, always with you and always ready to serve you in fulfilling another of Spinoza's observations. The mind's highest good is the knowledge of God. Yes, your mind is largely responsible for who and what you've become. But there's also a beingness buried within you, in a place where your thoughts originate. Emerson suggests that it's a mystery, descending into us from we know not whence. These two ideas about human nature combine in you to form what I call two minds. The one that's frequently referred to as your conscious mind is what I call creative consciousness, and the other is your habitual mind, which, as I explained in the last chapter, is what I call the subconscious mind. Yet whether they originate in creative consciousness or the habitual mind, I believe that any thought patterns that don't enhance and expand your joyous development are excuses. As you'll see, this means that you have far more influence than you've probably been led to believe, to rearrange and change ineffectual and harmful beliefs or ideas. Before I continue, I just want to tell you that in the chapter before that he's referring to, I've done 3 videos on them. One is Kissing the Big Excuses Goodbye, Release Karmic Conditioning, and Yes, You Can Change Old Habits. And I'll put a link to all 3 of them in the description in case any of you want to hear any of them. Creative consciousness. In this paradigm, the conscious mind is more accurately described as the creative conscious mind. This close to the surface, non-habitual mind makes endless decisions about what you wear, what you eat, what appointments you keep, what time you go to bed, and thousands of other daily choices in your life. This invisible and placeless place is the part of your brain that makes and cancels plans, adds new ones, and thinks continuously. This creative consciousness is always there, to the point that even when you want to shut it down, it can be extremely difficult to do so. The thoughts just keep coming. What an immeasurable benefit to consider that this vast, mysterious mind is really part of the source that creates everything, as Spinoza suggests. So, if your mind is a creator, just as God's mind is a creator of the universe, then it can perform at the absolutely highest level imaginable. The creative force asks for nothing and has no ego. It's simply an instrument of giving, providing, and offering at all times with no consideration for itself. Put another way, the highest calling of your conscious creative mind is to be the human equivalent of God's mind. Yet you'll probably agree that most of your thoughts focus on the relatively tiny universe of your human self. Rest assured that you can choose to learn how to shift your everyday thoughts away from what am I doing, what can I get, and how quickly can I get it, to Spinoza's concept of discovering the highest functioning, all-knowing part of yourself. This may sound like a tall order, but I guarantee that reprogramming your creative conscious mind is really a simple matter. The endless thoughts of me are close to the surface and highly susceptible to change. You'll have the opportunity to practice this when you study the paradigm for eliminating excuses in the 3rd part of this book. The creative conscious mind can do almost anything you instruct it to do. It can change thoughts at your bidding. Practice affirmations you create. Wander in blissful meditation at your invitation, and learn almost any new skill at your insistence. It can think of everything you direct it to. Through discipline, effort, and continual practice, it can also accomplish almost anything you focus your thoughts on. The problem with creative consciousness is that its constant shifts and changes can overwhelm and flood you. It's often referred to as the monkey mind because it keeps flitting about almost continuously, first having one thought, then another, and then still another. Most of this close to the surface mental activity is the ego's attempt to dance to the beat of rhythms and influences that are outside of you, which are probably unwanted and unnecessary, and running your life without your permission. Your creative consciousness has developed a weak connection that's full of static, so its signals from a part of the infinite intellect of God are silenced by an ego-based accompaniment that broadcasts. What's in it for me? How do I look? How much money can I make? How can I get ahead? Whom do I have to please? Why are there so many demands on me? On and on these thoughts come and then go and then come right back. There's statistical evidence that the conscious mind occupies approximately 5% of the total workings of the brain, leaving 95% to the realm of the subconscious. Percentages interest me less than the ability to sense your mind as not some amorphous component of your being that's constantly changing from one ego-based thought to another, but rather as evidence of your nature or your connection to the infinite intellect of creation. This style of magnificence respect alerts you to your ability to access the highest function of your mind, the habitual subconscious mind. According to Nora Tranders, the author of The User Illusion, the subconscious mind has been calculated to process millions of environmental stimuli per second versus only a few dozen environmental stimuli per second that the conscious mind can process. Conventional psychology wisdom says that much of what you believe about yourself, along with almost all of your daily actions, is programmed into your subconscious or habitual mind. You spend a great deal of your time operating on automatic pilot, so to speak. In fact, you could visualize your two minds as co-pilots. The conscious mind is aware of its thoughts, but is a minor player, like a real pilot in training, while the subconscious takes care of virtually everything that you need to think, say, or do. I take exception to this assertion that the habitual mind runs the show, doing everything that the creative mind isn't paying attention to. According to this view, the habitual mind is like a computer running a downloaded program that will play throughout your life. It's been permanently programmed from the moment of conception, and it's next to impossible to get new software to rewrite existing programs. I simply cannot agree that a part of your mind was nourished by ideas, images, and input that continue to be necessary for your sustainability today. It's my contention that this is a false belief that's easily revealed as an excuse. I don't believe that anyone has to live within the belief that they have programming in their subconscious mind that can't be rewritten. I'll explain my perspective on this issue. If you're the way you are because of something that's subconscious, that is below your level of waking consciousness, then it's clearly something you can do nothing about. You can't even talk about it, since it's beyond your conscious mind. For the same reason, you can't understand it. You can't challenge it. And most egregiously, you can't change or fix it. How can you fix something that's totally inaccessible? It would be like attempting to repair a broken watch that was sealed away in a vault. Obviously, you'd need the combination to enter into that previously inaccessible space. If something is subconscious and thus automatic, it's believed that you don't have a choice in the matter. And to me, that's the most regrettable thing about this subconscious model, believing that you don't have a choice. The truth, as I see it, is that everything you think, say, and do is a choice. And you don't need to think, speak, or act as you've done for your entire life. When you abandon making choices, you enter the vast world of excuses. Right now, while reading this book, decide to begin choosing instead of excusing. You can instantly decide to reprogram and direct your life toward the level of happiness, success, and health that you prefer. I've had a downloaded pattern since childhood, and it concerns my stroke in my daily swim. Some people who have observed me making my way through the ocean have said that I swim as though I've had a stroke. I never paid much attention to what others said until I discovered that the way I kicked my feet, using only my right leg, while my left leg stayed motionless, was putting undue pressure on my back and throwing me out of alignment as I practiced yoga and simply got older. When I was advised to change the way I swam by kicking both legs simultaneously, my first reaction was to think, I can't change my swimming style. I've been doing it this way for almost 60 years. I even swam competitively with this, quote, dire stroke. This is something I've downloaded into me from thousands of hours of swimming and is a subconscious habit. Yet after putting to the test the ideas I'm writing about in this book, I was able to rather easily adopt a brand new swimming stroke, even though I was 65 years of age at the time. Just like my being able to rather quickly change a 60-year-old habit, you can access the program you're operating with by examining your thoughts. Your habitual mind takes over when you choose to ignore your conscious beliefs, and you just continue to act in ways you've been programmed to. But you can shift to your creative mind and explore your options. You don't have to buy the old argument that a part of you is inaccessible, unreachable, or buried so deep down inside that undoing early programming is impossible. You'll never successfully reprogram your computer or your mind by telling it to stop spewing out the same garbage. You're stuck until you change to a new operating system or download some new files. But first, you have to know that this is an option. Think of the many ways in which you identify yourself, particularly in the gray area of deeply entrenched thoughts. Identify the programs in your habitual mind that are so outdated that they're hampering your system. Those attitudes, beliefs, and thoughts that don't serve you are excuses, ultimately destined to be sent to the trash bin. Mark Twain had this wonderful observation about how we change old, unwanted ways of thinking and behaving. Habit is habit, and not to be flung out of the window by any man, but coaxed downstairs a step at a time. My objective is to help you coax down the stairs those ways of thinking that keep you from living your life at the optimum level. Should this seem daunting, know that it doesn't have to be a lengthy, winding staircase that takes years to traverse. Or to use the computer metaphor, your internal system is as capable of change as contemporary operating systems are. Freedom from long-established habits, whether they originate genetically or mimetically, is attainable with the excuses be gone paradigm presented in Part 3. Reaching into the part of your mind that works on automatic pilot as a result of early programming and conditioning isn't nearly as troublesome as allowing it to continue to run your life. It's actually quite uncomplicated and won't take a great deal of time to shift from old habits to new choices. You are a part of the same intelligence that creates worlds. In fact, your mind is that intelligence. Knowing this, how could you consider a part of you to be unreachable or unprogrammable? No part of you is unreachable, no matter how automatic or habitual it may have become. Certain aspects of your life may seem to be governed by a force that you're unaware of, and you can feel that there's no possibility of choice and that you're imprisoned by your excuse inventory. I can't really help it. It's just my nature. I've always been this way. Talk about futility. However, any time you choose, you can access your habitual mind and begin to reprogram it, changing the patterns that may have been useful once but no longer work for you. See yourself through a new lens. The quote at the beginning of this chapter was written almost 120 years ago by the father of modern psychology, William James, who urges us to be aware of the danger of living as if there are no choices. I am personally convinced that everyone has a capacity for greatness that transcends anything they've been taught to believe, that every being who's ever existed is in fact a portion of the all-creating power of intention. Since we're all pieces of the infinite creative source, we should continually be telling ourselves, I came from God, and since I must be like what I came from, I am a piece of the divine. Trying to imagine the all-creating spiritual force coming up with excuses for anything is impossible because it is creating from its own consciousness. Now put yourself in this picture. While your mind is part of the unlimited source, it becomes limited when you believe it to be fallible, weak, impotent, or any other adjective that misidentifies with creative energy. When you edge God out in this manner, you invite ego, which is known as the false self, by spiritual teachers to all persuasions in. I invite you to try on a new lens that lets you access your false self with its ton of excuses, many of which I've detailed in the following chapter, and its belief in limitations. As it edges God out, your false self forces you to part with ideas that prove you're a spiritual being having a temporary human experience. Ego gives you a rationale for creating the rationalizations and justifications that eventually go on to direct your life. They become so embedded in what social scientists call the subconscious that your habitual mind turns into an excuse machine. Allow yourself to look through your new lens by acquiring a set of beliefs that include your spiritual or God-realized nature. It may feel a little unfamiliar or even mysterious at first, but be willing to allow your senses to adjust to this new way of seeing. Transcend the idea that your genetic makeup is static. With your new ability to perceive ego, you'll become a wizard who easily dethrones the dictator of your false self, bypassing early conditioning imposed by people in your environment who have edged God out. As you get comfortable with this new way of seeing yourself, ask yourself the following question. If no one told me who I was, who would I be? Quietly meditate on this by spending some time in the spaciousness of not knowing. Imagine that your subconscious mind is non-existent and there is no shortage receptacle for excuses during your life. There is just an open and inviting clear space inside of you, a tabula rasa, or a blank slate, with a magical surface that nothing adheres to. You might imagine that your everyday conscious mind simply doesn't absorb the opinions of the folks you grew up with. In this little fantasy, there's never been anyone telling you who you are. So who are you? When I did this exercise, I found that my answer to the above question was quite simply, I would be anything that I, and only I, decided to be in this moment and all future moments. As the song goes, I've gotta be me. And that means jettisoning all of the excuses I've accumulated. My habitual life wouldn't be based upon anyone's early programming, since there wouldn't be anyone who ever told me who I am. Or as the Tao teaches, look to nature for your sustenance. Look to the great mysteries, to the great mysterious Tao, God, that does nothing and leaves nothing undone. Observe how the entire universe and all of these beautiful Tao-centered creatures work. Tao-centered creatures allow, they trust, they live here in the present moment, and most assuredly, they have no need for any excuses. I told you it was going to be long, but I just didn't know where to cut it off earlier because I think that there was so much information there. We don't realize it, but we are programmed and we absorb all of this subconsciously without realizing it. And I think what he's saying is, we should be mindful and live in the present moment and stop having excuses for the way we are and realize that we can change. If there's something about us that we don't like, then we can't say, well, I've been like that forever. I've been like that for 76 years for me. however long for you, but it doesn't mean we can't change. I don't believe you can't change. But they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, I can learn new tricks. Sure you can, if you really want to, and that's what it's all about. If you're mindful of it and aware, and you want to make yourself better, to have a better life, to make a better world for all of us. So I hope that you do, and I hope you have a great day, and I send you my love. Mwah. Until next week, bye for now.